The mahogany box. The police led Martha away in handcuffs, her face pressed against the tinted rear window of the cruiser. Victor followed moments later, his right arm in a cast, his jaw bruised beyond recognition. Elena stood by the iron gates of Thorn Manor, holding a silver locket she'd found at the bottom of the mahogany box. A locket containing a photo of her grandmother holding a baby that wasn't Martha or Victor. But that was weeks away. 3 days earlier, everything had been sealed shut behind dust and secrets. Saturday afternoon, the attic of Thorn Manor smelled of decay and old wool. Rain hammered the slate tiles above, each droplet hitting with the force of a small fist. Elena's knees pressed into the dusty floorboards as she crawled toward a pile of moth-eaten blankets, her breath heavy with exertion. She heaved the fabric aside with both hands, sending a cloud of sediment spiraling into the dim shaft of gray light that cut through the small dormer window. Thunder rattled the roof. The sound was close, too close. The cold iron latch touched her fingertips first. She pulled out a small box made of weathered mahogany, its surface scarred with deep gouges that looked like claw marks. She tried the lock. It held firm. No key. She knew there wouldn't be. Elena jammed the tip of a flathead screwdriver into the box's lid. With a sharp downward thrust of her shoulder, the wood splinters came apart. The lid popped open with a jagged crack that sounded like a bone breaking. Inside lay a stack of brittle, yellowed papers tied with a black silk ribbon. Her thumb slid over a seal. Red wax, stamped with the official mark of a law firm. She unties the knot with a quick jerk. The main document unfolds between her trembling hands. Her eyes lock onto the signature line. Sale of Thorn Woods Estate, $2.4 million. The signature beneath the amount is a shaky imitation of her grandmother's careful script. But underneath that is the clear, bold notary stamp. Victor Thorn, Executor. The date on the document reads 12 July 1998. Elena's breath catches. One sharp, cold hitch. The sound of her own heartbeat fills the attic space, drowning out the rain. She tucked the mahogany box under her left arm, her right hand gripping the rickety banister as she descended the steep staircase leading down from the attic. Her boots made no sound on the threadbare carpet. Creaking wood, distant thunder. A single yellow bulb cast everything in sickly amber light. The figure stepped out from a doorway at the landing so suddenly that Elena's muscles seized. A hand shot out, fingers closing around her wrist with the force of a vice. Julian. Tall, wearing a black sweatshirt, his face obscured by the darkness of the hall. Grandmother said nobody goes in the attic, Elena. His voice was low, threatening. Elena wrenched her arm back, but Julian lunged, grabbing for the box. They collided with the wall. Plaster cracked as Julian pinned her against the aged wallpaper. Elena drove her elbow into Julian's ribs. He grunted, a sound like an animal, and Elena wrenched herself free. His hand slipped. She shoved him backward. He stumbled down 3 steps, his boots clattering against the wood in a chaotic rhythm. Elena sprinted past him, her hair flying behind her like a banner. Her legs burned, her ribs burned. The box bounced against her side as she ran. The heavy front door swung open as she reached the grand foyer of Thorn Manor. Uncle Victor stood there, silhouetted by a flash of lightning. He was wearing a long tan trench coat, drenched in rain. He shook an umbrella, spraying water across the black and white marble floor in a chaotic pattern. Elena stood at the base of the stairs, the box hidden behind her back, her breath hitching. She forced a smile. Her fingers were white-knuckled around the wood. "Elena," Victor said, suspicion creeping into his voice like smoke. "I didn't expect you back until tomorrow." Dinner was candlelit. The kind of candlelit that pretended to be intimate, but was really just theatrical. Victor sat at the head of the table, carving a roast with a silver serrated knife. The blade scraped against the ceramic platter with a high-pitched screech that set Elena's teeth on edge. He didn't look up from the meat. Elena sat across from her mother, Martha. Martha was nervously shredding a linen napkin under the table, her hands working in quick, jerky motions. Elena reached for her wine glass. Her hand was visibly shaking as the crystal chimed against the rim. A delicate, damning sound. Victor pointed the carving knife toward Elena. He leaned forward into the candlelight, and his eyes reflected the flames like a predator's. A drip of juice from the roast fell onto the white tablecloth, blooming into a red stain that spread like blood in water. "Julian tells me you were exploring the attic today," Victor said. His voice was smooth, dangerously quiet. "Looking for something specific?" Elena's wine glass froze at her lips. "Just curious," she managed. "Grandmother never lets anyone up there." "Your grandmother," Victor said, "is very protective of her private things." He cut another slice of meat. The knife sang against the platter again. Late night. Elena burst out of her bedroom door, the box wrapped in her leather jacket. She sprinted down the dark corridor, her socks slipping on the polished wood. She looked back and saw a shadow detach itself from the far wall. Julian. A hard, heavy thud as he chased her. His footsteps rapid and muffled on the carpeted runner. Elena's lungs screamed. Her muscles burned. She didn't slow down. Julian tackled her from behind. They crashed into a heavy oak pedestal, sending a blue porcelain vase shattering onto the floor. The sound was deafening. Elena kicked out, her heel connecting with Julian's shin. He howled, a sound of pure rage and pain. Elena grabbed a shard of the broken vase. She swung it in a wide arc, forcing Julian to jump back. Shards of blue and white ceramic flew across the wood like shrapnel. She scrambled to her feet, blood trickling from a small cut on her palm, and dived toward the back servants' stairs. Behind her, Julian cursed and staggered forward. But Elena was already gone, swallowed by darkness. The library was massive and silent and smelled of old leather and aging paper. Elena docked behind a mahogany desk, her chest heaving. She pulled a black ledger from a shelf near the floor. Her fingers flipped the pages rapidly, stopping at a column of figures dated 3 days after the land sale. The entry read, "Payment for silence, MT below it, $500,000, MT Martha Thorne." Elena's head dropped back against the desk. Her eyes closed. A single tear tracked through the dust on her face, leaving a clean line like a scar. Pre-dawn Sunday. The kitchen was ice-cold and fluorescent bright, the industrial refrigerator humming its constant mechanical song. Victor stood in the doorway, holding a heavy iron fireplace poker. Julian stood behind him, arms crossed. The glow of the refrigerator cast a cold, blue light over both of them. Elena backed up against the center island, her hands grasping a heavy marble rolling pin. She was surrounded. Behind her, the back door was locked and bolted. She could see the bolt from where she stood, a thick brass rod that might as well have been a mile away. "Give me the box, Elena," Victor said. His voice was gravelly, low. "This isn't your burden to carry." Elena didn't answer. She raised the rolling pin. Victor took a step forward. His shadow grew larger, swallowing the light. Elena hurled the marble rolling pin at his head. He ducked, and it smashed into a glass-fronted cabinet. Shards of crystal rained down like snow. Elena lunged at Julian, tackling him into the prep table. The air exploded out of his lungs. Julian slammed a fist into Elena's shoulder. She reeled back, her hip hitting a burner knob on the stove. A blue flame whooshed to life, and the smell of gas filled the air. Elena grabbed a cast-iron skillet and swung it with both hands, her muscles screaming with effort. The skillet connected with Julian's temple with a hollow dong that echoed through the kitchen. He collapses onto the tile, blood trickling from his temple. Victor swung the poker. It caught Elena in the ribs. She gasped, doubling over in agony, falling toward the back door. Her hand reached desperately for the door bolt. Martha entered the mudroom from the back hall. She wasn't crying. She wasn't afraid. She held a small, snub-nosed revolver aimed at the floor. She reached out and took the mahogany box from Elena's weakened grip. "Victor was just the muscles, Elena," Martha said. Her voice was icy, matter-of-fact, professional. "It was always my plan. Grandmother was never going to give us our share." Elena was slumped against the mudroom bench. She looked up at her mother. The betrayal was a physical blow, harder than any punch. Martha tucked the gun into her waistband and turned to Victor. "Clean this up," Martha said to him. "Get the girl out of the house. Make it look like she ran away." Elena's eyes widened. The clock ticking in the hallway seemed impossibly loud. The coal chute was Elena's only option. She kicked the latch, and the metal door swung open with a shriek. She slid down the metal ramp, her jacket tearing against the rough edges. She hit the muddy ground outside, rolling once and springing to her feet, covered in soot, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Gray morning mist rose from the grass as she ran toward her car. The parking area was misty, dreamlike, unreal. Victor rounded the corner of the house, his lungs pumping. He grabbed Elena's hair as she reached the car door. She slammed the car door onto his arm, the sickening crack of bone echoing through the morning air. A guttural scream tore from Victor's throat. Elena didn't wait. She didn't even look back. She started the engine and drove. The tires spun on the wet gravel, found purchase, and propelled her forward and away. The gates receded behind her. Monday morning. The lawyer's office was glass-walled and bright and sharp with sunlight. Elena wasn't clean. Her face had a bruise blooming across one cheekbone, and her clothes were torn. She dropped the black ledger onto a glass table. It landed with a heavy, final thump that seemed to echo through the entire floor. The lawyer was an older man in a charcoal suit, his face weathered and sharp. He opened the ledger and read the entry. Payment for silence. MT. He looked up at Elena and nodded once. He picked up a sleek black desk phone and started dialing. "Get me the district attorney," he said, his voice crisp and final. "We have the Thorn evidence." Weeks later. Sunset. Elena stood by the iron gates of Thorn Manor. A police cruiser pulled away from the mansion, Martha's face visible through the tinted rear window. Another cruiser followed behind, carrying Victor. Elena looked down at her palm. She was holding a small silver locket found at the bottom of the mahogany box. The box that Martha had dropped in the mudroom. The box that contained not just forged documents and incriminating ledgers, but something else. Something her grandmother had hidden there decades ago. Inside the locket was a photograph. A young woman, Elena's grandmother, holding a baby that wasn't Martha or Victor. Elena turned the photo over. The back reads, "To my only true heir, Elena. They will try to take it. Don't let them." She snapped the locket shut. The click was sharp and final. Elena turned away from the manor. Her footsteps carried her across the gravel toward the setting sun. She didn't look back. The long shadow of her walking figure stretched across the driveway, growing longer with each step, until it disappeared into the gathering dark.